everybody.
We are Anima Vox, and we improvise. We have been doing free improvisation ever since we met.
That's right.
And perhaps the most successful improvisation so far that we have done is our daughter Julia, right?
Improvising every day.
Yeah. Um, Improvisation has now become such a major part of my life, and I can't possibly imagine living without doing it.
Yeah.
And especially doing improvisation with you. So it has really transformed my life as an artist, as a teacher, and we are both very much engaged. Would you like to?
Yeah, sure. I've been exploring improvisation with my choral ensemble. So in my other non-singer life, I direct choirs at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. And before today, when I met, I had been exploring free improvisation for maybe 4 years with my ensembles, breaking them into small groups, and essentially saying, okay, make some music. There's a sort of this veil of mystery around free improvisation, around improvisation in general, that I wanted to take away. And especially because in a conservatory setting where everybody is intensely focused on their technique, on their ensemble, on their solo repertoire, I noticed that my students, and I knew this for myself when I was in conservatory, lose a sense of themselves as creators of music, and enabling them to rediscover their innate ability to create music outside of the composition studio, outside of jazz, which are both important things, but in my setting and for my students to realize, like, I am a classical musician and I am a creator of music has been really powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What Carole was mentioning is like experiencing ourselves as artist creators, not so much as artist recreators when we perform music that was written by somebody else, but the music that we create in the moment with improvisation, it's so powerful. It can be so powerful,
yeah.
And it can be so personal. But several things are required. One is the element of trust. Trust in ourselves. There is also the element of self-compassion. Wouldn't you say that we need to have self-compassion,
yeah.
Knowing that we are not perfect, but knowing that in improvisation there is no right or wrong.
Right. There's no mistakes, only opportunities.
Right. And whenever we work with students in improvisation, we are not the teachers. We're not really teaching. We are merely guiding them to possibilities for them to explore within themselves what they already know, the language that they already know. There is this great guy, Stephen Lachmanovich, that wrote...
This is his book,
yeah.
Free Play, Improvisation in Life and Art. Fantastic book, very philosophical, really great.
Yeah,
we love.
So powerful. And we have met him personally. We have had a session with him in his house in Virginia, and we have grown now at every moment that we improvise. Every time there's something magical. And that is something that I really would like to talk to all of you, and I'm assuming that the majority of you are flute players, is that the level of engagement that is necessary for us to operate at a very high level, artistic high level, it requires that we become vulnerable. And I don't think there is anything better than improvising to put yourself right there on the line and become vulnerable. And that day to day working out and experiencing the being in the groove, being in the moment, being in the zone. What's the term I'm looking for?
All of those work. I think you were I think you're looking for flow, but
Flow,
all of those words.
yes. And by the way, flow has been part of my research, my latest research, and everything is tying up together now. And the way that I'm looking at myself as an artist, I see improvisation, how necessary it is, and that's why we've been working with our students to introduce them as much as we can.
So I'm curious because I've not worked in this sort of setting and in this environment before. If any of you have experience with any kind of improvisation, free improvisation, jazz improvisation, there's a way to give a thumbs up on Zoom or a little like yes in the chat. I'm curious.
Or turn your cameras. Yes, we are seeing. Yes, all right, great. We're seeing several of them. Yeah, sure, fantastic.
I love those little Zoom buttons. I didn't know they existed before this whole semester happened at UNCG, and I taught a lot by Zoom buttons this spring. Talk about improvisation.
Yeah, and this is really great for us because there is an interaction that we can see, and that's the same interaction that we experience when we have an audience in front of us when we are on stage, right? But shall we do some improvisation and then ask some questions?
Sure. Do you want to start with just
non-visual?
No, non-sub. We don't have a subject. We just come from nothing rather than.
Yeah, let's try that.
And then we can maybe do some text or some shuffle.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds great. Okay, so there we go. An example of an improvisation.
Out of nothing. I mean, So sometimes we'll take a text and we'll improvise on a poem or a text. Sometimes we'll take an image of something, and those are starting points. We started from nothing at this point, and that's actually the way I like to start with my students when I'm working with them. The first thing I do is put them in a circle, and I have them make just one sound around the circle to get them used to making a sound from nothing without sheet music in front of them. And then we build from there. I know Tadeu, when he's working with instrumentalists, he'll have them just use part of their instrument in some way. Do you want to demonstrate part of the instrument?
I do like the way you also start just without the instrument first.
Just with the
but
body
it becomes very obvious that they're very vulnerable without their instruments in their hands.
Yeah.
Then, but once we try that, then I ask them just get the head joint. So here's just with the head joint, and then they would do sort of a duet together, you know, so you're gonna grab
I'm
it.
gonna get something.
Okay.
We have all these little random things around our house. So I have this baby spoon that our daughter doesn't use anymore, and this little bell. So we don't know what's gonna happen, but. Whoops.
So the idea of the improvisation is like little games. There's a lot of play theory. So the play element is essential in improvisation, and it's part of who we are. In the animal world, all animals, they play. You know, if you just watch kittens or dogs or polar bears, toddlers, you know, that's all they want to do, play. And we, for some reason, as we grow, we detract from that play element. And this is what we're doing. We're playing, we're having fun, we're creating little games. And the interesting thing is when we start restricting our game, like in this case, just a head joint. You know, then
just a little bell with this baby spoon.
we need to start thinking about what can I do with this thing, you know, just thing alone. And this will propel me to enhance my vocabulary. And then once I put it back onto the flute, then I have that plus what else, you know, we can create with that.
I think also, in my experience with working with instrumentalists, especially advanced instrumentalists, but anyone, there's an association that comes from playing with your full instrument, like a needing to prove a thing. You're trying to prove in the practice room all the time. You're trying to prove. And I know with some of my colleagues at the university too, they're afraid of free improvisation because to play a violin is connected to who they are as a person. And there's a fear of making a weird sound or a bad sound. And it's the same thing happens with vocalists too. Like, oh, if I'm not, you know, I've got to protect the gift. And we can get over that hump, and it opens up a lot.
And the interesting thing is that we are not really major and minor scales as artists. We are not arpeggios, you know. We are much more than that. We have ingrained those patterns into our heads since we have started to work on our instruments, but that's not really deep down where we are. And to rediscover that deep down nature in ourselves and to freely allow that to be expressed by the means of playing the flute or making noises on the flute, I think it liberates us. And once you have experienced that joy, you have experienced that flow, it's like, oh my gosh, I just want to continue doing that. And it's extremely, extremely exciting, you know.
So something I really like to do with my choir in rehearsal is to break them up into small groups and put them around the room, groups of 5 or 6. And then I'll give them a topic, or I'll give them an emotion or an idea and see what happens. So I'm gonna throw this out to all of you. If you would give us an idea in the chat, and then we'll improvise on whatever you write. That's terrifying, but we'll do it.
Okay, let's watch the chat.
We're watching the chat.
Yes.
And then we'll get back to Lily's question.
Yeah. Okay, anybody
have an idea? Could be an emotion.
Image of something.
An event.
Yep.
Only using whistle tone.
Oh, okay.
He's like the whistle tone expert. Okay, so let's put that limit. Only using whistle tone.
Okay. Now we need.
And voice only whistling. Okay, good.
Okay.
I love it.
Yeah.
Conflict and resolution.
Oh, cool. That's excellent. Okay.
Thank you, Kathy.
All right. So. Nice.
My whistle hurts.
All right. Well, can we have some comments if you want to turn on your cameras and microphones?
So we can go through the questions, and then if those people are comfortable, we can have them turn on the cameras just as we mention them, so it's not cluttered, everyone trying to do it
Okay.
at once. So one of the first questions.
Okay, well, hold on a second. I was just curious, who asked for conflict and resolution?
That was Kathy.
That was Kathy.
Did we somehow create that environment of conflict and resolution? Kathy, I don't see her response in there, but maybe okay. All right, so let's go through the questions.
Yeah. Ask away.
Yeah. So here they are. Okay. So our first question, which we were just trying to figure out how to change their name to their actual name. So iPad Pro, if you would like to ask your question, you are welcome to. If not, I can ask it for you if you'd like. Okay, I'm going to ask it. So let's see, where did it go? Here it is. So before you start playing, do you have some kind of history in your head or like a plan, you know, or a melody coming to mind, which I think is very interesting, you know, what your mental state is kind of at to prepare?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking that, iPad Pro. Do you want to start? Do you want?
No, you go ahead.
So, the short answer is no. I know I don't have a specific idea already in mind before I start improvising. The longer answer to that is that I have a state of mind, or at least I try to be in a state of mind and in a state of openness to follow my musical intuition, which is a listening here and a listening here and a listening here, right? So that I can receive information from both my improvisation partner, but also my own musical intuition. And that listening to your intuition is a whole practice in and of itself.
Yeah.
And there are some ways that you can develop and build your intuition. A lot of it is just getting out of your own way, getting out of my own mind and my own head. And if I make a weird sound, I don't get caught up in that sound, but I see where that sound will take me. I guess what I'm getting to is curiosity.
Right.
Try to stay open and curious about what's going to happen.
Yeah. It's interesting. That's a great question, by the way. In the beginning, when I first started doing free improvisation with a group right here in Greensboro. and sometimes we would try out things, and then I had an idea in mind, and I was getting ready to come up with an idea, and then somebody else comes with an idea very similar to that, and I was like, oh, now what do I do? So very early on, I decided, don't plan anything, because if you're listening, that is going to prompt you to an answer. Mm-hmm. So it's the same thing on a conversation. You don't have to be the first one to start talking. But once you start talking, let's say, Carole comes and she says, flower. And I say, oh, yes, I did see that flower in our yard. So I am getting her information, and then I'm transforming, leading to something. And then when she possibly hears the word the flower in the yard, I said, oh, and now it's summer. You see how the conversation gets evolving, so it goes to different places. If you're planning to talk about, let's say, polenta, and she comes with an idea of a hummingbird, and then, but I do want to talk about my polenta, so that doesn't go, it could go.
It could go.
It could go. You could make the polenta go with the hummingbird, maybe you're feeding polenta to the hummingbird.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's much better to actually have the experience of the other person or the group, and then be moved together to arrive at something that is artistically relevant. Mm-hmm. Did I answer that question?
Yeah.
And I think that leads really well into the next question from Lily. If you'd like to say your question, otherwise I can. I'm going to go for it. So Lily would like to know, how do you maintain a single musical speech throughout?
Do I understand the cohesiveness of the...
I think so, kind of keeping it, as one or as a line together.
Sometimes we change.
Yeah.
We may start with one cohesiveness thing, but sometimes we can have a B theme.
Yeah.
Right? Or we can have a development, and then we may or may not come back to it. So we may not have a recapitulation, right. Or maybe we just hints at those ideas. And sometimes we decide, I don't know, because of the moment of our inspiration, we just go to something completely different.
Yeah.
Right? And it's okay. And that's the beauty of improvisation. It's okay to let it go of an idea if you didn't like it. You tried that thing, it didn't work. Do something else and see what it works, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not obliged, stuck with something prerequisite of
right.
when you're improvising.
I will say, in my experience, that once a group, I don't know that we've experienced this as much, but once a group gets into a musical idea, it is challenging in a practice to step out of that musical idea, to take a step back and to stop making music for a minute, or to allow there to be space for something else to happen. And so that's also a practice. Something that I do and something that we do mm-hmm. is we'll give ourselves a text or a picture or a structure. Let's have a 1 minute improvisation with a clear beginning, middle, and end. Right? Or let's have an improvisation that's 1 minute long with an ABA. Or we do 3 pictures sometimes, mm-hmm. 3 short movements. And that's a good way to practice that keeping on.
Yeah, because, each image hopefully is a little bit different. So then you can have different emotions associated with each one of the pictures. So hopefully the whole thing will still make sense artistically in one cohesiveness. Mm-hmm. But it's not a necessary element right. that it has to be this way. Yeah. And the idea of the unknown mm-hmm. is fascinating.
Oh, it's so much fun.
It's inebriating, It's so exciting, of not knowing. And that's what I think is one of the aspects that we really need to work with our students, is to allow that,
yes.
to allow the unknown.
It's the risk. When I surveyed my students about how they felt about free improvisation, it all distilled down into three things. They felt fear because of the risk. And then they felt curiosity after they had tried it a little bit. And then they felt exhilarated because it is very exhilarating as things lock in. But getting past the fear and the risk, but allowing that, that's our role as teachers, is to create a safe space for our students to take risks.
That's right.
Very passionate about that, risk taking.
Yes. Other questions?
Yeah, we do have one from Facebook as well, from Lauren. And so she said, if I am improvising with someone, what or how can we connect to each other while we are playing?
Keep listening.
Yeah.
I think that's the key. That's the key in everything, is to play less and listen more.
Put the other
Talk
person
less,
first.
Listen more.
And to have the compassion, the self-compassion, to allow yourself to be quiet and remove your ego out of the picture.
So can we do an example of that really quickly?
Sure.
I'm just going to accompany you.
Okay. All right. Let's do it.
All right.
What an obnoxious report.
There wasn't a lot of space for me to accompany you in that improvisation.
Right, yeah, because
But I just laid some tones down. And
I just had, I thought, okay, what she wants is for me just to take the lead, and I'm just gonna do something and not really listening to her, allow her to fit in within my improvisation.
But I think that you can be the
Never do
leadership.
that.
You can be in a leadership role,
Right.
but still be listening and open, and create spaces for the accompanist to
Right. It's
enter, right?
so much more interesting when we listen to each other as opposed when we yell at each other.
I feel a little.
That's how I felt, like I was yelling,
Yeah.
so you would have that,
Right.
So, yeah, I don't recommend doing that all the time.
No, but I think when you're working with somebody, you can decide, okay, you lead, you start. Sometimes today I will start, and then I'll enter after, and then we'll create this thing together. With my singers, sometimes in small groups, I'll say, okay, you're the lead and you accompany, and they all create harmonies around whatever that person is doing. But I guess the point of it is the way to connect is to listen and to be open to what the other person is offering.
Yeah.
And a balance of offering and listening, of energy flow.
That's right. That is so much more interesting when you're friends, when you're behaving like friends,
Yeah.
Any other?
And there was actually not so much a question, but a really interesting observation from Rebecca Archer on the Zoom here. Rebecca, I don't know if you want to read it or talk about it, or I can. I'm going to go for it. So Rebecca pointed out, she said, I think that it was really interesting to have the whistles. The quiet nature of the dissonances made it seem as if the conflict never truly resolves. That the conflict always is there in the background, and just that it created an amazing atmosphere.
Cool.
Yeah, I thought it was fun.
All right, what else you got? Give us a limit and give us a topic.
Yes.
I like this game.
So we did get some previous topic questions. Let me scroll back up here. So Ruby said perhaps inspired by a Monet painting, and Liz said hope.
Hang on. You can talk about hope. I'm looking for the frog book. I think it's upstairs.
I can talk about hope.
Okay, so I can't find the frog. Our daughter has a book of Monet paintings with a little frog who appears throughout, but I think it's not worth going to find it right now. But if we just think of
those colors.
Yeah, like the bridge and the water lilies. Is that the one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
We start with that. Okay.
Okay, thoughts?
Monet-ish?
Monet-ish? I felt Monet-ish.
I felt Monet-ish.
Oh, thank
Oh,
you.
thank you.
Oh, nice. These are so nice. How about something
Words.
with words?
Yeah.
Even as simple as twinkle twinkle or something else.
Yep, that's awesome. So I pulled just from our shelf before we began Long Life by Mary Oliver. Just as a thing with words in it that we could use. And so, okay.
Summer Night.
Yeah, Summer Night, that sounds good. So I'll read, this is Mary Oliver, Summer Night. We, just so you know, we have never actually looked at this poem together. It's been, I don't know if I've actually read this poem in her book. I love Mary Oliver. So I'll read this and then we'll improvise on it.
Okay.
Okay, so this is Summer Night. The night is so long, its pages are so slow. Who can read it? Who can guess the final chapter or the afterword? Moonlight is another story, of lovers mostly, and starlight still another, of the heaven we hope for in the haze of the heavens. And there are little musics, sometimes, as though the mockingbird also can't sleep. If I step outside, I smell the grass or the rain, or that purse of honey, another one awake. The blue iris, so straight, so sweet-lipped, soft and alone in the dark. And starlight still another. Of the heaven we hope, 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 sometimes, as for the mockingbird, 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 mockingbird can't sleep. As if the mockingbird can't sleep. Sometimes we don't know when it's going to end.
Right.
And that's something that comes up actually a lot in working with people who are new to free improvisation, is how do you end? How do you know when it's going to end? And we don't always know when it's going to end.
Right.
There's just a feeling. Well, that's why communication is very important. Because if Tadeu decided to end, but I still had something to say, I might go on a little bit, and then he would have to make a decision to either leave me hanging or to come back in and support whatever thing I had left to say.
But sometimes you do have the last word, and that's okay.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I'm just saying we have to stay in communication.
Right.
And yeah, sometimes I end, or sometimes I keep going, and then he comes back in.
And sometimes it just ends.
Yeah.
You just know that that's the point to be quiet now and reflect on what you just heard.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and it's beautiful, and then you appreciate that. We don't need so much material that, you know, we'll have trouble remembering
what it is that we did.
Yes,
yeah.
right.
Following the stream.
Right.
Yeah.
Are there any questions?
Somebody asked if we could make an improvisation of the pictures behind us.
Ooh, yeah. Let me tell you something.
He'll talk to you. I'm going to get something
Yes.
down for a second.
These pictures are from our very dear friend in Brazil. Her name is Ligia, and we just by accident, we were in Brazil. Carole had a Fulbright, and she was doing research in Brazilian music. And we stayed at a place where the original owners of the pousada where we stayed, she was this very famous painter in Brazil. Ligia Velasco is her name. And here is a sequence of the king and chess. So she was very much interested in chess, and that's what it came for her. It's important that to us, after you get to know Ligia, she is extremely energetic. She is, I think, 85 or 86 years old now, but she has the energy of a 25-year-old, and she's just full of life, full of life. So here.
So just so you know, you might not be able to see what I'm doing, but I pulled down our chessboard, and I pulled out the kings and the queens. I don't know what's going to happen with them yet,
Okay.
and it's on my lap here, so you might not be able to see, but. Do you want to pick one to improvise on? Do you want to? Do you think they're different enough to do 3 short movements, or?
Sure, let's try 3 short movements.
Okay, So we'll start
You want to start from this
over
one?
here.
Yeah.
Can they see all of them?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Queen, queen alone, queen alone, queen, queen. She, queen in red alone. Save her, save her, save her, save her. Queen, queen on the move, queen. Checkmate. Two queens, two queens. Two queens, two queens. Two queens, Hang on. I have these chess pieces in my hands.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. Thank you.
So,
Yeah, as you can see, any visual or words or feelings,
Yeah.
emotions can serve as a limiting factor
Yeah.
that then obliges us to experiment and say something. And it's very much like, you never saw that picture before. What would you say about this picture? And then you have to look for words within yourself, look in your past experiences, and find out how you would start talking about something that you were not prompted before or thought about it before. But the important thing is that information is always within us.
Yeah.
And to allow that and how intuitively look for something that you have there. And we all have. We have so many experiences, different experiences, to allow that to reach really down there and pull that information out.
or yes, or allow it to rise.
Right.
Because sometimes in the trying, we get caught up in the trying, and then we lose.
Oh, I
what
think
it
it's
was.
much more allowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And allowing the voices that are telling you things like do this, do that, that sounded good, that sounded bad, allowing them to go away. Just allowing them to leave so that there is room for that inner knowing, right? And that to allow that to rise. Yeah. So there are lots of ways to incorporate free improvisation in your performances. We do a lot of performances that are just free improvisation. We have a little summer concert series, and we just did a summer concert on texts by people of color and artwork by people of color. And we only had one written piece that we did at the very end, but the rest of it was improvising on these different aspects. We actually have done an improvisation concert of other artwork by Leisha and poetry by Leisha and words of her.
She has beautiful flowers.
Yeah.
Yes.
A video of her speaking. And we've incorporated some free improvisation within concerts that are predominantly written music also.
Mm-hmm.
So there's lots of ways to incorporate it. I think it's really important as we help our students become these creators, that we create opportunities for them to improvise in their recitals, in performances.
Yeah, there's one more aspect, I think, that, well, there's several other aspects, but one thing that is very, very important is that by working together with somebody and doing free improvisation, it's really, and being vulnerable towards that person, it really makes the friendship, it rises to a different level. So, and I would encourage all of you to experiment that, to have that experience, because it's so beautiful. Human beings are by nature, we're not created to live alone. We need that social aspect that is extremely important, and I'm sure a lot of you know now in this pandemic times that how important contact is, and to have that experience. Any thoughts, questions that you may have?
We do have another question from the Facebook feed that I think is not quite as much free improvisation, but kind of improvisation in general, but definitely could be, as Claudio says he loves to improvise, but says for him he has to know the theme very well. And I think it's more in regards to maybe improvising off of music or something, but is there a way in the more kind of free improvisation style that if there is a song or something that you kind of want to improvise on, how would you approach that?
We actually do that all the time with Julia. We sometimes get
Yeah.
her songs that she sings, and we transform that to something completely
When
different.
she lets us.
That's true. That's true.
When she lets us do that.
So the aspect that I love about free improvisation is that you don't have preconceived chains. And by chains, it's like a melody or a rhythm, or rhythm and melody, I think, are the most, or pitches, right? That can be like chains that locks you down into something. And we're not attempting to improvise in a Baroque style or in a jazz style, or sometimes it happens. It just happens by accident. But the other aspect about improvising is that all of this is not so chaotic as one might think. These are all words and images that we already have inside. We can only put out things that we already have in our vocabulary. And that's why it's so important to try all different types of music to perform, to expand your palette of colors. And then you can explore each of this and say, oh, I like this. Oh, this worked. Oh, no, this didn't work. This, right?
And I think that you could use a theme as a limiting factor.
Yeah.
That you could use it as that, and maybe you sing or you play the theme, or you make up an accompaniment to the theme, and then take a fragment of the theme and then turn it around or turn it upside down, or improvise on how the theme makes you feel, which might be different music from the theme itself. So those are some ways that you could use a theme, but we don't typically use themes in our free improvisation. Typically.
No, yeah.
The themes arise out of what we do.
We did actually, when we were in Brazil, we were improvising on Licia's flowers, and they were beautiful. They were as big as this, flowers. But then we cut to small details, and we
took fragments of her flowers.
We took fragments of her flowers. And the interesting thing was that after the concert, she said, oh, you have given me such a great idea. I never thought of taking fragments of my own work and expanding that and making that the interesting aspect of my next painting. And she did paint one picture based on that idea of a fragment. Then it was very, very interesting. So in a way it worked backwards, because we inspire her to look at her own work differently, so we shed different lights on different aspects of the work. Yeah, and sometimes it resonates with the majority of people, sometimes it doesn't, you know, but
Yeah.
c'est la vie.
And Michelle from the Zoom call has a question. Michelle, do you want to ask it, or I can as well? I think I'm going to keep going for it. Okay. So Michelle asked, on the flute, do you ever think of a key to play in beforehand, or do you just let it land where it lands and flow with it?
If I start, it's whatever it ends. When Carole starts,
It's a little more risky.
it's a little more risky, you know. So I have to be listening very attentively, and sometimes I go, oh, half a step away. Oh, okay, I can fix it, and then I slide, you know, to her pitch, or I slide away from that pitch, and that is very exciting because, like I said, there is no right or wrong.
Yeah.
If you think it's wrong, then it's going to be wrong.
Yeah.
But if you think it's right and you can make that right, and say, oh yeah, I meant to do that. And that conviction of your musical idea, and also to be humble enough, that didn't work? Okay, try this. Yeah, I like that. And then you keep going like you're discovering.
Well, and there was one time we were doing a set of improvisations on Marian texts, and I think it was an Ave Maria text, and I started, and then Tadeu came in, and it was not the atmosphere that we were hoping to create. So I just started back at the beginning of the text and sort of changed what I was doing to fit in. And you can always just start over within the flow of the improvisation.
That's
Just
right.
like,
That's right.
all right, well, let's do this other thing.
There is a picture in my mind, of Winnie the Pooh, and there is Tigger. There is that scene that he is sleeping on his. He slept on the drawer, as if you remember Winnie the Pooh. He slept on the drawer of what do you call
A dresser?
dresser, and it was his birthday, and they tied a cord into his foot, and and they go all the way around, and then they pull on the cord, and he goes, whoa, 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 what is this? Ooh, what is this? And then he starts following that thread, and the excitement, his excitement of going, it was like so excitement. And that's how I feel whenever we are improvising. It's like, oh, where is this going to lead? Oh, where is this going to lead? It's not. It comes out of curiosity and enjoyment, playfulness, as opposed to fear.
Yeah.
When we perform music that is pre-written, or a Bach sonata, Mozart, whatever. There is always that element of the fear. Oh, what if it's not according to the style, or what is, there's so much that goes on in our head. But this, being the creator ourselves, there is no right or wrong. There is just the
You have to
level.
be comfortable with the fear.
Yeah, and the level of comfortable with excitement also.
When you diffuse fear, you try to control. Like, that's one of our mechanisms. When we feel afraid, we try to control. We try to diffuse that feeling by being in control. And as soon as you try to control the improvisation by either predetermining a melody that you're going to do, or something that you've done before, or by playing or singing a lot, as soon as you control that, then it loses the magic.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can sit in that fear and find yourself in that place and just live with the unknown.
But isn't that the description of life, or one of the descriptions of lives, of our lives, to live in the moment with whatever that is presented to you at that moment? I think that is life. That is like you're really living in the moment.
Improvisation is life.
Yes.
It is.
We just decided.
I don't think we know.
You have another question from Emma.
Okay.
Emma, would you like to say your question?
Sure, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Hi, I love listening to you guys play. It's awesome. I kind of have a question about if you have any general advice about the types of gigs or the types of audiences that you bring your improv to, maybe like a little bit more. I guess I'm thinking like I love improv and I would love it to be part of my career more. And is there any advice you guys have about it?
Great question.
Yeah, it's a great question. Like the first thing that came up for me listening to you was to say, just keep doing it. Like, make it part of, make it part of a recital. I don't know that we have a specific audience necessarily. We just have made it a part of what we do as a duo, and our audience is mostly classical music people, right?
Yeah, white hair.
We have sort of the university, we both have university performances and other places too. Our audiences are classical music lovers who may not have experienced free improvisation before. And so we add that to our concerts.
But the comments afterwards are overwhelmingly positive.
Oh yeah.
You know, they come to us and said, wow, that was amazing. You know, they use all the superlatives because they hadn't come across that before. But part of what I think that they have experienced is that energy that was on stage of the creators of the music, you know, and not necessarily just so much like I'm gonna put this CD now of free improvisation, yes, and I'm gonna enjoy. But it was something that was tailored for that occasion, for that room, for that atmosphere there.
So like, I guess we don't really have specific advice other than to keep doing it, to keep adding it to your repertoire of things that you perform and do.
There is a danger though that if you start doing more and more and you yourself start enjoying more and more, you might become like us, that all we want to do now is like do free improv, you know, because it's so much fun, you know.
Add it in.
Yeah.
We do some regular repertoire.
Yeah, we do. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. That totally helps. And I feel the danger of just wanting to do improv only. So I feel that. Thank you so much. That's really good advice.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, that is our time for today. But I'd like to start by thanking Tadeu and Carole for joining us and kind of taking down some of the walls and obstacles that a lot of which are invisible, but I think that a lot of us feel when it comes to improvisation, and just making it a lot more realistic and just realizing that we're all capable of it. So I think it was a really, really interesting class for all of us. And thank you to everyone that tuned in on Facebook and on our Zoom. And then we'll be back in just 30 minutes with a discussion panel with the Glass Ceilings group as well. So we will see you soon. Thank you again, Tadeu and Carole. It was a great time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.